Good afternoon and welcome to PIMS 9.41 course submission and PVAAS. My name is Karen Brular and I certainly appreciate you taking the time today to learn more about PIMS 9.41. Today, we're going to talk about the second of two updates that will put in place all the required data and exports for the PIMS March submission of course and PVAAS data. The first update, PIMS 9.4, allowed schools to perform the data entry required for the submission. The update we're talking about today, PIMS 9.41, contains the staff student subtest export, additional editing functions, and calculations of final responsibility and enrollment numbers by subtest. Taking a look at our session objectives today, we'll talk about the process in MMS for PIMS 9.41 with the course submissions, the PVAAS calculations, and the staff student subtest export. We'll certainly look at any MMS help and website resources that we can offer to you to support you in schools, and then we'll end today's session with a question and answer period. Now, before we go into MMS to review PIMS 9.41, I'd like to take a moment to go over to our website so that I can share with you some of the resources that are available, many of which are related to PIMS and more. So if you have not been to our website before, it is located at www.cri-mms.com, and there are many important resources that are available for you here. So once you log in, and then you'll have access to many of these options depending on what you have subscribed to with us, and you'll need your customer website login to do that. If that is something that you don't currently have, then certainly feel free to share that and we'll get that to you. You can share that in the questions panel. And so in the downloads section, we'll be referencing this as we talk through the process here. If for self-hosted schools, you have the PIMS 9.41 and any other downloads available at the download page. And then in addition, for all of you, whether you're self-hosted or hosted, the full documentation is also located in the downloads section. In the knowledge base, in the searchable knowledge base that we have available on our website, if, for example, I do a search, and I'm including this in quotation marks here to limit my search to specific items related to PIMS 9.4 and 4.1, you see that there are several different documents that are available as resources for you. And for example, for those schools that already completed the updates and the data calculations in 9.4, this is the knowledge base article that you received also at the previous webinar, and then the knowledge base article that you see here at the bottom of my screen, the PIMS 9.41 staff student subtest export. If I click on that, I can see the step-by-step process that also details what we're going to go through today. So I certainly encourage you to visit our website and the knowledge base to download this knowledge base article. And there certainly are many other topics there in addition to PIMS. And then we also have a video learning center and our webinar catalogs and sign up for schools that have a subscription to that. So if you enjoy the session today and find it informative, we certainly welcome you to contact your sales representative to get more information about that. So let's now move into MMS generations and take a look at PIMS 9.41 as it relates to the course and PVAAS submission and the staff student subtest export. So before we're able to implement PIMS 9.41, there are a couple of important things that need to be done. The first one is having gone through the implementation steps in PIMS 9.4, where we went through the step-by-step process for implementing PVAAS, and there are several steps to that process, and you went through that process of creating your teacher responsibility, your teacher-student responsibility, and creating and updating the subtest. And those options, as you may know, are located in the Pennsylvania EDR menu. So if you have completed those steps, these three that I just mentioned here, then you will have the data available to work with in 9.41, and the step-by-step process relating to 9.4 is available in our knowledge base. And then number two, certainly you'll need to have PIMS 9.41 downloaded if you're a self-hosted school, and the MMS online schools that are hosted will have the update installed by MMS. Also, be aware that this update does contain a fix for the Change Teacher ID Number function in MMS. Previously, staff ID numbers in the student subtest table and the teacher-student responsibility table were not being updated. So there is a file included in 9.41 that will remedy that issue. And then once you complete that update and you've installed 9.41, then you'll come into the admin menu if you're not already prompted when you first log into MMS Generations and run the update database structure. So once these items have been completed, we're now ready to walk through PIMS 9.41 and what is required to prepare and export your data for PVAAS. So as we had mentioned, it's of critical importance in PIMS 9.41 that teacher ID numbers are unique for each teacher in the school and the district-wide database. You may have come across duplicates in the PIMS 9.4 PVAAS implementation, so it's important to make sure that you change any teacher ID numbers that are a duplicate, and you would do that in the admin menu. There is an option for change teacher ID numbers. Now, if you are making the changes to teacher IDs in PIMS 9.41, this current version, then you would not need to do any further recalculations. If you had made the changes to teacher IDs in 9.4 in the previous version, then there is a recommended process to recalculate the teacher assignments, teacher-student responsibility, and the staff-student subtest data using those unique teacher IDs. So if you made those changes in 9.4, and again, all these steps are detailed in the knowledge base article that I showed you on our website for 9.41, then what you would do is you would go into the Create Update Teacher Assignments, and again, this is if you change the teacher IDs in 9.4. Otherwise, you don't even need to go through these steps. And you would process the delete operation, and then you would process the create update operation for your teacher assignments. Also, for the teacher-student responsibility table, you would again process the delete and then the create for all your courses that relate to the teacher IDs that have changed, and then the same for the create update staff student subtest table. You would process the delete and then you would process the create. So that would then refresh the teacher ID numbers. So number one, we need to make sure that our teacher ID numbers are unique across the school and the database. Number two, we need to confirm that the students that are included for the PVAAS reporting are active for scheduling. And what we mean by that is referring to the biographical jobs menu on the left-hand side in MMS Generations. And if you choose more biographical editing jobs, there's an option for set student active, inactive status. So any students that you have who are inactive in attendance need to be made active. So then the next question is, how can I find out which students are currently inactive in scheduling? And what we recommend for that also is located in the biographical jobs menu. If you choose the print biographical list by field report, and then in the selection here where it says select field for list, the option we would choose is, or the field is SCH_flag, the scheduling active, inactive. And then what that will do is it will provide you with a list of students who are active, a list of students who are inactive in scheduling, so you will know if there's any students that need to have that flag changed to active versus inactive. The A indicates active, and then if there are any inactive students, they would also be included as well later in the list. The next step is confirming that we are in an all students filter. As you see up here at the top, my filter is listed here as all students, sorted by student name. So you don't want only active students, you want all students, so that you will be able to complete your calculations and reporting on all students. The next option we're going to take a look at is the Create Update Teacher-Student Responsibility Table. This contains a new option that we're going to look at. So this option here that says Prepare Records for Subtest Calculations, that is an option that was added in 9.41. So what we need to know about that is that if the teacher-student responsibility table was created in PIMS 9.4, then you do need to choose this option to prepare records for subtest calculations. You would set your date for the PSSA or Keystone when they begin, just like you did previously. You have your overwrite subtest codes option, and you have the option to include any students who may not be entered into attendance, as well as choose a related calendar. And then you would also choose the courses that apply. You would build your list. And so if you had created the teacher-student responsibility table for all of your subtest teachers, courses, etc., then you would run that prepare records for subtest calculations for the courses that you had previously created in PIMS 9.4 with the teacher-student responsibility table. If the teacher-student responsibility records are deleted, if you come in here at any time and delete these records and then process the create in PIMS 9.41, then you will not need to choose this additional option to prepare records, because in 9.41 this process here is included in the create records. Previously in 9.4 this prepare records did not exist. Now that function is included in the create. So if you delete, if you create, and then create, you do not need to run that again. It will only need to be run one time. And this particular operation then also would need to be run in each school. So this is a school-specific function. So again, if you previously in 9.4 did your create update for the teacher-student responsibility table, then you do need to come in and process the prepare records for subtest calculations, your corresponding choices, courses, and process. If you delete and create in 9.41, which is what I am looking at here in my MMS generations, then you would not need to again run that step. The next option that we're going to take a look at here is the create update staff student subtest table. There is a new option that was added here, this calculate totals option. So a couple of things that we want to verify before we calculate totals, but I wanted to show you this new option before we did that. Number one, in your edit staff student subtest data, if you have worked in here previously, you notice that there are now two options in this edit, and we'll come back to the edit. But what I want to show you is there's an option for base responsibility and then calculated responsibility. So right now we're looking at base responsibility, what is currently entered here and calculated for the students based on all of the prior steps that you took for teacher assignments, for teacher-student responsibility, for staff-student subtest data. So if I leave this selected as base responsibility, my subtest list tab indicates base. So one of the important items that we need to confirm before we run the create update staff student subtest table is that the student responsibilities total 100. We will have a report generated for us if there are student records not equal to 100 and going over 100. We'll talk about that when we go back to the create update staff student subtest. But when I talk about the fact that base responsibilities must total 100 for students, this is where I'm referring to. At the edit staff student subtest data, choosing the subtest and looking at base responsibility. We'll come back later to this calculated. So number one, we confirm that base responsibility for students is equal to 100. And then number two, for each school, we verify in the admin database configuration. We take a look at the attendance tab, and we want to make sure that the option that is selected here, either the first date of non-membership or the last date of enrollment, is the same for each school where we're going to be processing the subtests. So now going back to the Create, Update, Staff, Student Subtest table, having confirmed that all students are active for scheduling, that the admin database configuration option is the same for all schools for the attendance withdrawal effective date, having confirmed that the base responsibilities total 100, and then also ensuring that we're in an all students filter and that there are no duplicate teacher IDs. Then we come to this Create, Update, Staff, Student Subtest table. So this new option here, Calculate Totals, this option allows MMS to pull together all of the teachers, courses, and students for each subtest, and it also calculates the possible enrollment for each student and teacher and their final responsibility percentage. This particular operation, the Create, Update, Staff, Student Subtest table, is a district-wide operation, so it can be done in any school, and all of the records district-wide will be processed regardless of the school selected. And after you process this operation for your subtests, if there are calculated responsibilities greater than 100, then you will receive a report that will be generated listing the subtest, the student ID name, and the percentage. So that will be something very helpful. And then what do you do with that information? Well, now we come back to the Edit Staff Student Subtest data, and if I choose one of my subtest identifiers and I choose the calculated responsibility, I come to the Subtest List tab, which is now calculated because I chose the calculated responsibility option. So my tab indicates Subtest List Calculated. And so this is a new option. As you may be aware, in 9.4, PIMS 9.4, you could only edit the base responsibility. Here, if you make edits at the calculated responsibility, then these are the final numbers that will be reported for the teacher-student subtest in the export file as long as they're not recalculated. The main purpose here for this feature is to allow edits for cases where rounding may exceed 100. So this is a final opportunity to review your subtests, and if you scroll down further, and in my instance here, I happen to have some zero related items, and so if I edit those here and assign the responsibility for a particular teacher, it'll update that for the student, and that is what will in fact get updated. Now, of course, it is important to think about, not that we would necessarily just come in here and just put 100s in for everyone, but we do want each student to have 100 if that is in fact accurate. So you should see one record per student, and then you should also note that this is your final opportunity to make any changes in the information that's listed here. So while some schools may prefer to go back and see why the Evergreen did not pull through in the responsibility, that is one option, to go back and redo your calculations, or you can make your edits here at the subtest list calculated, and those are the final numbers that will be exported. And then once that has been completed, you have reviewed all of the subtests and confirmed that the totals are accurate for your students. Then you are ready to actually go to the export itself, the new export. And that is located at the Pennsylvania EDR menu under Exports, and you'll find that in the PIMS course export option. And there is an option available here for the staff student subtest, and you would certainly enter your district code, or if you have been in here previously and saved settings, then you could simply recall those settings, and then you would go ahead and process that export. And again, this operation needs to be run only once. Any school, this also is a district-wide process. So those are the steps that you would need to go through in 9.41 to finalize your calculations. So remember that there are many different knowledge-based articles that are available for you about 9.4, and there is some information as well about 9.41 in our knowledge base. Also, you may want to download the documentation for PIMS 9.41, and then also, as you are most likely aware, you can find specific PIMS related information at the Pennsylvania Department of Education website, and then also some additional information about PVAAS, the Pennsylvania Value Added Assessment System. Having gone over those things, let's just take a moment to go back and confirm what we talked about. We looked at resources that are available for you, and we talked about the PVAAS 9.41, the new functionality that's available and the different options, what you need to consider before you process the export and the prior steps for that, and then we looked at the export itself. So just to come back over to generations one more time and talk about the items that we discussed. We need to make sure that our teacher ID numbers are unique, confirm students are active for scheduling, confirm that an all-student filter is selected. So those three things are of critical importance here for this export and for the calculations. And then we talked about the new options available. In the teacher-student responsibility table, the prepare option that's now available if you created previously the teacher-student responsibility in 9.4. If you did all your work in 9.41 or did a complete delete and create all over again, then you won't have to run that particular option. It needs to be done only once. We talked about the calculate totals in the next option in the create, update, staff, student subtest table. And we talked about confirming base responsibilities equal to 100, also the admin database configuration attendance, the attendance withdrawal effective date being the same for each school. Once you have completed all the prior steps that we talked about, then you can calculate totals for your subtest, after which point you can review the edit staff student subtest data and the calculated responsibility, make any final adjustments, and then you're ready for your export. So I thought maybe it would be helpful just to talk through it one more time, just to review the different steps. Thank you very much to everyone for your time today. Have a great day.